But I've had people that said, well, I can't afford a therapist. I'm like, okay, use AI. That's free. It's not going to be the best source, but it's better than nothing. Today, we're joined by an incredible guest who's helping people do just that. Alicia Farricielli. Alicia is a certified life and health coach specializing in inner child work, intuitive healing, and personal empowerment for, golly, over 15 years already. She's passionate about helping individuals overcome limiting beliefs, build self-worth, and finally break free from the things holding them back. Everyone, welcome today, Alicia Farricielli. Alicia!
Hi!
How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I love your background. I love that owl.
Thank you. That was an awesome little find, a thrift store find for a studio that I'd opened up a couple years ago, and I just put it into my office now. So,
yay!
Awesome.
Super excited about that. And I'm so super excited to meet you. So, Alicia, tell me about you.
Yeah, so I am I call myself an inner child coach. And I do this through one-on-one coaching. I do this through breathwork sessions, meditation, EFT, and then energy healing. And so I help to teach people how to take that inner child inside of them and bring out joy instead of the wounds that we are conditioned and have throughout the our entire lives.
Right?
Yeah.
So it sounds like basically when you're a child, you can choose to carry the joy with you or the trauma with you. You're just helping people leave the trauma and bring the joy. So what brought you to this? Because we didn't wake up at birth and decide, I think I'm going to help people heal their inner child. How did this come about?
Yeah. So I was raised in a very conservative, strict religious background that I was, this hellfire damnation fear was like instilled into me from the time I was born, probably through my wound all the way up. So I have a lot of that traumas that were associated with that, that really went into my businesses. So I'd launched multiple networking business, I had an event planning business, marketing business, was in real estate, still in real estate, but that was my primary thing, throughout many years. And it just found this burnout, and nothing was working right. And I wasn't happy. There were profitable, successful, but it was just not happy. I was not happy. So I went back through and started about 10 years ago, when I started doing a little bit of work on myself. And it's like, I got to start changing some things and starting to figure out who I'm going to become. And so as I was doing that, I made a huge headway with it. And then I decided to almost leave real estate at the time and to focus on business coaching. So when I started that process, I did a lot of work on myself, but I started to find my clients were needing more mindset coaching as opposed to business coaching.
Yeah.
So I went back to the mindset stuff. And so I was like, there's still some missing piece behind, I feel like I should be this much further than I am. Something's missing. So then it's funny how the universe works, because then I got introduced to this inner child term, and I was like, oh, well, I've heard this before, but I wasn't really sure exactly what it was. So I started digging a little deeper into it. And once I started doing that, I started clicking. I was like, oh, my little Alicia inside of me needs to be healed. And so when I started doing that work, everything started to fall into place, and the healing journey just continued.
Oh, I love that. So when you're working with somebody to help them reintroduce themselves to that inner child, right? What does that look like? Because I'm guessing for some folks, that's kind of like woo-woo or whatever you call it. I just learned this new term for people think it's woo-woo. So I was trying to use that in a sentence. I was like, that's kind of weird, but how does that process come about? Like you're visiting with somebody, how do you get them to relearn their inner child and re-meet that person? And then decide how to shift what the impact that person has on their current self.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back and just start what the inner child is, because a lot of people don't really understand what the inner child is. So
Oh,
the inner
that's
child is that 3 to 8 year old self. I say three. It actually can be younger or a little bit older, but usually by the time we're like three, we start to remember some things about ourselves. It's that child that is just completely open and creative and fun and joyful. They want to be superheroes. They want to be, they have they have maybe a teacher. They want to be astronauts. They want to be, all kinds of. There's no limits they put on themselves.
they'll dream. They will dream so big, and they don't even worry about how it's going to happen. They just know that it is attainable and achievable.
Yeah, because why not? And so as we get into our, older childhood, into adolescence, and then especially in adulthood, we get put into this little box, I like to call it. Have how we're supposed to behave, how we're supposed to be. We get all these limiting beliefs limitations that are put on ourselves, that we just start to become a different person than who we were actually intended to be. So that's kind of, I guess, where the woo can come into it. Is we're not being the genuine, authentic person where we were brought into the world to be. So when we start to figure out why we're repeating certain patterns, let's say, I'm going to say in business, if you keep finding the same clients over and over again, that was me. If you keep attracting the same thing, the same clients, it creepy attracting the same situations. If you can't collaborate with your team, if you're having all these different issues going on in your business, a lot of times that's tied into inner child wounds, something that was said or projected onto you as a child.
Mm-hmm. It was it was a product of your environment, whether somebody did something, said something, or something to squash that possibility. And then you're carrying that, and you're taking that as fact. Is that right? Like, that's the way it is, versus being open to other things outside of the box.
Yeah, because when we're children, we take everything literal. If our parents tell us something, we take that literally, because we don't have our brains haven't developed enough, first of all. But also we just take things as what they were told to us. If your parents said they hated you, were you going to think that they really hated you? Or if some kid called you ugly, you really going to think that you're ugly? But is it true today? No. So a lot of times we start to project things that were told to us in our childhood, things, limitations again, into our adult selves. If we have patterns of relationships going on, that we're attracting the same type of partner over and over again, or we're having the same type of arguments over and over again. A lot of times that's tied into inner child wounds. If we feel like we can't achieve certain success, or we're in a business and we keep achieving something, but we keep falling back, we keep self-sabotaging things.
Because maybe we don't think that we're worth more than that.
Yeah.
Right. Or we're taught to be afraid of the possibilities, or we're not worth it, afraid of the possibilities, what ifs. And I can see how that could impact. How does one go about shifting? Because you mentioned like we attract. So if we're finding that like this we don't want, but we keep attracting this thing that we don't want, and we recognize that we're attracting this one thing we don't want, like these clients that are just a pain in the tush, versus the clients who are like, who are just joyful, who are in line with you. How do you go about that?
So there's two things. So if we're looking at it from an inner child standpoint, we need to go back and figure out what is causing this. A lot of times when we're attracting clients, we're putting the blame on the client instead of putting the blame back on ourselves. And so
we're playing the victim versus the empowered person.
So go back and really start to figure out and listen and be like, where's this first time that I really started to feel this way? It's like, do I feel like I deserve an excellent client? Do I feel like I deserve 1,000 excellent clients? And every client that comes to me, do I feel like they deserve that? So that's the inner child work you need to go back and do. And that's kind of a brief summary of it. But the most important thing is the energy that you're putting out to the world. And this is where the woo comes into place. And I'm going to preface this by saying 5 or 6 years ago, I would have been like, what are you talking about? Now I'm like, this makes so much sense after doing research, and it's worked for me. Yes. When we put out negative energy and we're frustrated with clients all the time, then we're going to keep attracting those, instead of switching our energy and switching our mindset and our victimhoodization into something different. We're going to continue to attract the same things in. But a lot of that is also
Absolutely.
tied into our self-worth and what we feel like we're valuable. What's our value on it?
Mm. Yeah. So to me, that concept makes complete sense. It's a physics. Likes attract
Yeah.
like. And who said that? Albert Einstein? Who says like attracts like, and right? And
Yeah,
like
he was the king of quantum physics, like how I call him, one of them.
one of them, right? And it takes me back to like I think it was 8th grade science, where you took a battery and you like, or a magnet, and you two like, it has like how it attracts and detracts, and that's very much like who you are, who you attract, right? So
Yes.
what are we magnetizing towards us? So how do you shift that energy, like from your inner child? How do you make that shift?
So go back and figure out exactly what is your ideal. We're going to go for clients. What's your ideal client? What down to the fact of how do you want this client to make you feel at the end of the day? Because it doesn't matter how they bring it or how things happen. How do you want to feel at the end of the day? You want to feel relief that you closed the deal. You want to feel joy that are happy, because you're going to feel joy and you're all kinds of things. What are these feelings that get really deep into the exact emotions you want to feel? So
Right.
then turn around and be like, what do I feel like is keeping these clients from me? Is there something that has caused in the past? For instance, was my parents always telling me that I was going to have to work hard to earn anything in my life, which I'm calling that out, because that is not true. Am I going to have to, am I like things like that? What was the core values that I was taught, and are they true? And first of all, second of all, what makes them true? Is it
Who designs that truth?
who decides that truth?
There's
Yes.
so many, but and we see this all the time. Like this person says this is true, this belief, and this person says this belief is true. They're opposite.
Yeah.
And they're both of them feel that they're actually true. So how does somebody start questioning their truth in a way that allows them to open up to believe that there may be a possibility for other truths?
Yeah, so that's a baby step, because that's going to shock your nervous system if you could just go straight into it. Full disclosure. So what you want to do is go back to that feeling. How do you want to feel? Do you want to feel joy and happiness, or do you want to feel the fear? Because you can't feel fear and joy at the same time. Those are two polar opposite feelings, and you can't have that. So we're going to take right now, if you're having the fear, what's the next step? What's the next best feeling I could have? And I use actually Abraham Hicks has a great step up, emotional scale step up that I'm happy to share with your audience too.
Yeah. What is it?
It's her book called Ask and Be Given. I'm looking at the book now. It's in that book. And I'll find a link and I'll share it with you guys.
Oh, yay. Thank you.
Yeah. And so you're going to go from your fear up to, I think that I'm going to say the next one. Maybe you feel disappointed, or maybe you feel the next one. You want to go up the scale of emotions. And how does it feel? What can I do to make myself just feel disappointed that I feel this fear? Because that's better than feeling fear, right?
Right.
So,
because fear can stop you, but disappointed.
Yeah.
That's like, it wasn't okay. You can.
It's more controllable.
Do something about that. It's more controllable. Yeah.
Yeah. So you basically want to feel into it and do whatever you can to make that next best feeling, because you don't want to go from fear to, oh, everything's okay, because that's just washing fear and emotions down, and they settle into our bodies and create all kinds of diseases and emotional turmoil and all kinds of bad things happen to ourselves. So we want to make sure we go up the feeling chart, or up the feelings in a healthy way, and not shadow down whatever we're actually feeling, because we have to feel the feelings. People don't want to feel that. Nobody wants to feel fear. And so we're like, I'm not fearful. But inside, your subconscious is so fearful that you really are fearful, and you're not doing anything about it because you're not acknowledging the emotion that's going on. So you have to acknowledge.
If you don't acknowledge it, if it exists, but you don't, it's like having the clutter in the room. It's the elephant. It's like, if you don't deal with it, it's the cancer that if you don't deal with it, it's just going to grow.
Yeah. And a lot of cancers, they're finding out, and there's so much research going on now, are caused because you have these emotions that are stuck inside of you. And a lot of them are stemming from your childhood and your inner child. So you can go back and comfort your inner child and start to get to eliminate, not completely rid of, eliminate a lot of these emotions and start a forgiveness process through that. That's going to start to relieve a lot of these emotions, negative emotions that are locked inside of you, and turn around,
Yeah,
you're going to have a very happy inner child.
I love that you said that. In fact, one of our first conversations on this podcast was with a friend of ours who she had cancer, and it just wouldn't go away. The abscess wouldn't go away, wouldn't go away, it wouldn't go away. And she dealt with her emotional turmoil, and almost immediately she saw the results in the physical abscess. Yeah, Shannon Avery Briggs is the one that was able to do that. And her testimony is miraculous, how she was able to cure cancer, just like what you said.
That's fabulous. I'm going to have to go back and listen to that one for sure. But yeah,
so good.
It's so much truth behind that. And they're tying the quantum physics, they're tying that into the woo, and the spirituality and science are starting to combine together. And there's so many different people that are bringing that. Dr. Joe Dispenza is a huge one. If anybody's not familiar with him and his work, that starts to tie stuff like I call the spirituality woo portion of it to the science. And so you can get behind both portions of it, and to really forming a different type of opinion with
Absolutely.
it.
So once you feel the feel, and then you level it up, right, to something, to a feel that you feel like you're not a victim of, but you can control. Now, once you've identified the feeling you can control, what's next?
So I'm going to take a step back on this. So when we're going to working with the inner child, I want people to realize first, to acknowledge their inner child.
Yeah.
And to give it some attention immediately, and some affection and some love. Because it's like you're ignoring a 3-year-old. You've been ignoring this 3-year-old since it was 8 or whatever. You've been ignoring this child over and over, and it's been acting out. So how do we get children to stop acting out? We give them attention and love and safety and support. That's what they're desiring. So we want to give that to your inner child. You can do that, and you need to do work on that every day for a while until it's still a continuous process.
How do you show them how do you show them attention, love, support? What was the other word you said? Attention, love,
support, safety
and support.
Yeah.
How do you show that to your inner child?
There's multiple different ways. A lot of it too, I would like to do letter writing with your inner child. So taking it down and saying, this because this happened to you, where I'm acknowledging the fact that this was wrong, and that basically how you want your child was feeling. You want to acknowledge how that made you feel, and that you acknowledge that, and that it was wrong. But however, I'm going to show up as the adult version of you, this 3-year-old, I'm calling 3-year-old, and I'm going to reparent you, and I'm going to show you the love and protection and safety and peace that you are always craving and desired. And all the times I'll put my hand on my heart and really feel into that. Because again, this is about feelings and emotions.
Right.
And feelings and emotions are not bad. We want to get in touch with our feelings and emotions. That's how you heal. And so you want to feel into that. What does it feel to give that child a big hug and let it know you're safe and secure now? And that you have did so much with your life, and you're so proud of it. And that it doesn't have to worry about the fear and the uncertainty that whatever it was going through. I also want to say, if you're dealing with an inner child that was sexually abused, physically abused, extreme emotional abuse, you find a licensed therapist to work through that before you start this process. You're going to get so much further with it.
Yes, there's a time for I have lots of friends who are coaches. They're like, there's a times for a coach and times for a therapist. I am not a therapist. There's a place in this world for a therapist. And then we have friends who are therapists and coaches. But that is so true. I think I've had people that said, well, I can't afford a therapist. I'm like, okay, use AI. That's free. It's not going to be the best source, but it's better than nothing. Right. But we have to get it. We have to be able to have the feel and move past the feel.
Yeah.
Right. So I love that you said, get a therapist. It's the best people, the most successful people I know have therapists, and they credit their therapists. I would not be here if it weren't for my therapist talking about my stuff. Exactly.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different stuff. And so when I approach the inner child, that's why I say that, because you need to go through the clinical portions of that for to heal on that portion that way. I go back on the spiritual side of it. So when I work with my clients, we work more on releasing some things energetically through meditation, through breath work, through energy work, through EFT, tapping. So we do things like that. And on top of it, more different types of talking, you know, it's not really talk therapy because we're not going to stay in that past. We're going to move
Yeah.
very quickly through that past, through the trauma wounds. I call them wounds because that's what they are. We're going to move through those. We're going to release and forgive, and we're going to start putting you on a path to going a different direction in your life. Whereas you go to therapy, a lot of times typically it's because you're still stuck in there, and you stay a little more stuck in there, and they're trying to release a little more things into it. So that's why I say if you have bigger traumas in your life, then you definitely want to go down that path
because there might be some things that you're still in denial of, and if you can't see it or feel it, just like you said, if you're in denial of the feeling and you choose to not ever feel it, you can't move forward. Is that right?
Exactly.
You get stuck in it.
You're stuck in it. And so we are told so much in society that we're not supposed to feel our feelings. You need to, especially growing up, we're supposed to ignore them. Everything's going to be fine. Just ignore it. Just put on a happy face. And go through it.
Okay. This too shall pass.
It shall pass. And it will pass, but it's not going to pass if you don't do something about it. You can't just.
You're going to carry that feeling with you. If you don't handle it, you're going to carry that feeling with you. Yeah, I get that. Yeah. Okay.
So you have to acknowledge these feelings. And when you start to view feelings as just something that's there, it doesn't mean it's the truth. It doesn't mean anything. Feelings, and I say that very lightly, but feelings don't mean anything because they're not the truth. That's just the way you're feeling at the moment. And that can pass from 1 second to the next. As we're human. Something can make you feel happy again or joyful again or something. You can control that. So it's not really the truth. It's just how you project your projection of the actual incident that happened made you feel.
So I've heard before, you can only have one feeling at a time. Choose wisely.
Yeah. I think you can have multiple feelings at a time.
Okay.
That's just my personal experience.
Okay.
I think you can feel, but I think they're still going to be close to that same scale. You can feel disappointment and anger at the same time.
Okay.
You can feel joy and peace at the same time. But they're still on the same level. You can't go from, you're not sad and happy. You can be sad about a situation, a certain portion of it, and be happy about or excited about something else that's coming.
Right. But it's the same. So it sounds like it's the same genre.
Yeah.
You're not going to feel fear and maybe, I don't know, love or fear and safety.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. I get you. Okay. Very good. And if you but since you're not going to feel them at the same time, you can shift in the same genre to something you can control or put your hands around and then move forward.
Something to make you feel better, because we always want to feel better in a healthy way. So people think, oh, I'm going to go drink a glass of wine, or I'm going to go do this and this to go feel better. That doesn't make you feel better. That just numbs a situation down. And I'm not bashing all of that, because if that's what somebody needs at the time, whatever. But I'm just saying that's not a fix-all end to it. We have to feel the feelings in order to feel better. Imagine, you know how you feel like you have like a cry. You ever had like a huge crying session? Like you're upset about something, you're crying. And then after you're feeling, you released it, you're not happy necessarily, but you kind of feel a little more calmness to you. You feel a little better. So initially, that's what it is. Sometimes if you're sad, sit and cry it out. There's nothing wrong with tears being shed or feeling upset about something. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with feeling that. Just don't stay in it.
So how do you unstuck the stick? Because some folks, they will just stay stuck in that for a lifetime. They will stay stuck in that for a lifetime and be the victim of a wound that occurred in their childhood and just allow that to replay for the rest of their lives and be a victim to it. How does, I guess first you have to believe that you can make that shift.
Yeah, you have to want that shift. It's not a belief, but you have to want that. You have to want to change. You have to come
Why
to a
would
point.
somebody not want to change? What would cause somebody to not want to change?
Oh, it's so easy to be comfortable. Victimhoodization is so much easy. It's so more comfortable to be in your misery sometimes because that's what you know. And it's scary to start healing because maybe you'll feel a little more uncomfortable. People want to feel uncomfortable going through
Yeah,
things.
so you see this when you see this a lot of times. People in abusive relationships will stay in the abusive
Yeah.
relationship, right? Because it's more comfortable
Yeah.
than getting out, and then they're afraid of, whatever it may be, all the things that they're afraid of.
Yeah.
How do you get unstuck, and how, like, the process of getting unstuck? I'm like, okay, you go back, you journal. Yeah, what happened was bad. It was bad. It shouldn't, but look at what you've accomplished between now and then, and look at who you are now, and be so proud of, and I'm proud of you. We've come so far, and we feel, right? We know how we
Yeah.
feel. We've translated that, and we've leveled up to something that we can control. Okay.
The next step is forgiveness. So I want you to turn around and you're going to forgive. People are going to forgive themselves. And you're going to make the decision that you're going to do whatever it takes to forgive. And by forgiveness, I don't mean that the situation, that whatever happened to you in the past was okay and that we're not justifying that, but we're no longer letting that define who we are. And so you're going to just make the actual step of just saying, I forgive myself. I forgive the situation. I forgive the other person.
Okay.
And you have to continue to tell
It's like you're giving that back. You're giving it back. It's like you're
basically giving all that back to them. It's all theirs to take back.
We're all giving it back. We're not
Yeah.
carrying that with us anymore.
Yeah. And it's a conscious decision. It's not something that you just say, oh, okay, it's done. You have to consciously decide. And every time this thing comes up, you have to say, no, I consciously have decided that I am forgiving the situation, the person, whatever happened.
Because the forgiveness isn't for them, it's for you. The forgiveness is for you, not them.
Totally.
And so I guess you don't have to tell that child, like, maybe it's the adult that abused them, right? So when we forgive the adults, how does that, like, we're not telling the adult the behavior was okay. We're telling the child that.
Yeah.
What were we telling the child? We're telling the child that they did fine, that they survived it, and they look what they've done. And
yes, but you're telling the child that you are now able to parent. You're parenting the child. Yes, whatever that child needed, that you are now providing that for them. If they needed attention and love and care, if they felt unsafe, I'm providing the safety. You are safe now.
You're safe with me.
You is safe. You're safe now. So you have to make sure that you've acknowledged their feelings first, because again, if you don't acknowledge it, then it's like to their mind, it doesn't happen. So you've acknowledged it. You've told them, made them feel safe and secure. And now you're releasing and letting go of the situation. And by releasing and letting go, again, it's not for the other person. I'm not a huge proponent that you have to tell the other person you've forgiven them, whatever. You don't owe that to the other person.
Right.
You owe it to yourself to forgive and to release that victim. You're not a victim of it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You're rewriting your story going forward. So
what's another word other than forgive? Give me a synonym that we could use. Or
you're releasing the past. That's basically what you're doing.
Releasing it to the past. You're just releasing it, letting it go, unhandcuffing.
It's not tying you down. It's no longer going to decide that you cannot do things in the future. It's no longer going to keep you from doing what you want to do and living out your dreams.
Right. Because a lot of times I think, when you see adults do this, and it's always been nerve-wracking to me when, like, adults want to make an impression on my child. Mm-hmm. And I feel like they do it so willy-nilly, and they don't understand what it means to put an impression on a child. Yeah. Because that stamp can last forever,
Yeah.
right? And something innocent that they might have impressed upon the child. And I see this in sports a lot. I'm in North Texas, and I see this in sports a lot. Like, they really want to make sure they put an impression on that child. I'm like, just focus on the sport. We're good. We're good. We're good. And I wonder how often, if as a parent with a child, how can you help the child not carry that impression into that baggage into their adulthood, so they don't have to pay the consequences into the future?
Good question. So, first of all, you have to do your own inner work because you have to be strong and a strong individual. You have to have a strong, joyful inner child, and it's going to show. So, if there's something that you have said to your like I have, my children are grown. There's multiple things that I've said to my children that I wish that I treated them like I wish that happened. But you also have to learn to give yourself grace and other people grace because most people do things because that's the best
With
resources
great
they have.
intentions. I'm not saying anybody
Yeah.
has bad intentions, but
Yeah.
you have good people with great intentions,
Yeah.
possibly doing some things that have bad consequences.
Yeah.
So
Well,
how do you help your children not carry the bad consequences of good intentions from good people?
ask your child how did when Mary told you that you needed to hit the baseball bat the other way and then you weren't doing a good enough job. I'm just throwing stuff out here. How did that make you feel? And the kid's like says, well, it made me feel like I wasn't very worthy. Say, well, is that true? That you're worthy? Is that, do you feel like that's an instance that would make you that the reason why you would be unworthy? The child's going to be like, well, probably not. Say it's not. Say you're doing the best that you can do out there, and as long as you go out there and show up and do the best that you can do, then ignore the other people. Just tell them, say they have best, and explain, say they have best intentions, but they have hurting parts of them that they feel like they probably need to be better at their lives. And the way that sometimes adults portray things with children is they tell them how to do things differently and how to do things better. That doesn't always mean that you have to listen to it. And so you can
Right.
teach your children boundaries very early in life. And then you can
And
teach
what
them
a beautiful gift to like a lot of times, you see, like, it's not a character flaw, like doing the bad thing or giving like feedback, and that's how it's the ones that attack the character
yeah,
of the person. And for the child to understand that this is a them issue and not their issue. So how
absolutely.
often, oh yeah, I think he's having a bad day. Do you know what's going on in his life? Oh, I think, oh, it looks like he's carrying some baggage on this. You don't have to carry that one with them, right?
Yeah. And you don't even have to call it out that much. You could say, just because somebody really integrate into your children, just because somebody tells you something doesn't mean that it's true.
Doesn't make it true.
Because they're going to school, the teachers are always right. The principals are always right. You're told your parents are always right. All the adults, they're always told adults are always right, but they're not always right. And so I think we need to stop that generational thing going on and just say, hey, adults sometimes aren't right. And you are allowed to be your own person. You're allowed to be who you want to be. And you're allowed to have opinions about things.
Right.
There's graceful ways, and with as long as you're showing it with love, and you teach your children how to show their opinions and boundaries with love. And they can walk up and say, Miss Mary, I appreciate you saying that, but I'm happy doing it this way. And just go on. They don't owe people explanations. Kids think they have to explain themselves. They don't.
Well, yeah. Well, it depends. Yeah. I can see how that's good. It's how the value of that. What do you think, like, moving forward, like I don't know, how old are you, Alicia?
I'm 44.
You're 44. I'm 51. And I know our generation believed in raising our kids a certain way. And I think I've got a 25-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 14-year-old. And there's already a significantly difference culturally in upbringing between my 25-year-old and my 14-year-old, how society views raising children, right?
Absolutely.
And we've seen so much of it. What do you think the baggage is going to be for this next generation of teens, early teens? I'm going to for my 14-year-old.
Um, I
In
think
relation to the 25-year-old and the 35-year-old and the 45-year-old. How is that shifting, you think?
I think there's still the same core issues there. I just think with the 25, I have a 24 and 22-year-old, so I would understand that parenting generation. A lot of mine was still trying to do what my parents did and I feel like now it's like parents are like, whoa, wait, we're going to shift some things now with going,
Right.
with that generation between your two children. I think that self-worth issues are even more extreme now because of everything that they're exposed to. I'm not talking confidence. I'm talking about they are told that they are only worthy on social media if they have so many likes and followers as teenagers. They are told they're only worthy if they have a certain look. I mean, you look at teenagers. I'm very impressed with like the way teenagers dress and their makeup and all their stuff. I couldn't do that at 14 years old. I was like, and
Right.
I mean, I look at my daughter. She's taught me all kinds of stuff of how, like, what makeup brand should I buy? And when she's like, I'm so impressed that they were able to do all that, and they still are, and it just keeps getting wilder. They have so much information coming at them that it's scary because it's almost like you have so much division of information coming, and you have so many ways that you're supposed to do this and you're supposed to be this, and it's like so much pressures are put on the children that I think that they just need to come back. And I think being truly authentic is really tough for kids right now. And I think really working with them and giving them the self-worth and to be their authentic selves and to let them. And we're seeing a lot of this kind of expand through not getting political or anything, but you see like a lot of things being like parents allowing a lot more different things going on and letting their children be who they say they are. Could be to an extreme, but it cannot be. You see a lot of this going on too, but also just letting children have respectful and loving conversations and not just, I mean, I grew up in a generation, I'm sure, I don't know if you probably did too, like where it was like what your parents said went. It doesn't matter just because I said, just because I said, just because I said.
Until I moved out when I was 18, I was like, oh, I don't think so. That was the day I moved out. Yeah.
And I did that to my kids because I was a young mom. I didn't know any difference. Now, that's one thing to go back and be like, I'm sorry that I called that. I think that can cause a lot of inner child issues with children growing up because they're not going to be able to, they don't have a voice in their self. They don't have any confidence to say stuff, and they don't feel like they're only worth whatever somebody else is telling them that they're allowed to be. So we have to
yeah, so it's their value and their worth isn't external, it's internal.
Yeah, and I think getting back into the eternal value of, I look at it too. I look at like our grandparents' generation. I feel like they had more internal value to themselves than the generations now do. The younger generation.
They take a lot, I think a lot more pride. I know my dad took a lot more pride in and very strict on character values. I don't think that citizenship and personal characteristic values are really taught like they once were. Like he very much had strong personal values on his character. I think we have a lot of gray in that nowadays. We release a lot of judgment. He was very judgmental. So I feel like we don't have as much judgment, but we also don't have very strong convictions. We've covered so much, but I want to make sure that we talk about everything that you wanted to talk about and that folks, that we're not missing out on like the best of Alicia. I don't want us to like you go like, oh, we should have talked about this. What should we talk about?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would want to bring, like, bigger thing is like, I just want your audience to have an open mindset towards meditation and mindfulness, and a balance of taking care of yourself, because we're coming we're coming into a time to where we're having to hustle. We're recession time. We're having to like figure out ways. Step back and take those 15 minutes a day to yourself. And I highly recommend doing meditation. Even if you say you can't, I was that person with ADHD, said I couldn't do it. And I learned and trained my brain, trained myself to calm down and gave myself grace through it. And start with just a 5-minute guided meditation. Just start with that every single day and get at the very beginning of your day and get your mind focused and do it at the end of the day and practice some gratitude. It's going to change your life.
There's a gazillion ways to meditate. Find one that works, right?
Yeah.
What form of meditation do you personally enjoy?
Okay, so I do spiritual meditations where this is going to go back to the woo sounding stuff for people, but
Let's go there.
yeah,
Absolutely.
I put on, and I'm able to now, I'm going to tell you because I'm a more advanced meditator now. So if you're an advanced meditator, go try this.
Excellent.
If you're not, go find a guided meditation that will walk you through how to and focus on your breath. So I actually put on meditative music because I love music. It puts me into the energetic that field. And so I start to go through and I call in my spirits and my guides. And then I stop and I'll ask a question and I listen. And I stop and I listen and question and listen. And I notice the feelings and the sensations and how it makes my body feel and the messages that are coming to me and guiding me intuitively. And I'll sit and do this sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes an hour. Just depends on how much is receiving coming in until I intuitively know that I'm done for today. That's my guided. That's my meditation in the morning. But you have to have an open mind. Anybody can call in guided spirits, can call in your protectors, but you have to have an open mind and allow them to show up because they're not just going to show up.
Right.
Yeah. So that's
So
how I meditate.
that is so important. I think so often people pray, they say a prayer.
Yeah.
And then they don't stop to listen to what God offers or what the universe is wanting to tell you and share with you. And it's all right there.
It is.
I've heard this, many philosophers, scientists, mathematicians, math. And you wouldn't think about this in math. They're like, everything you need to know is already within you.
It is.
You just have to stop and listen. And this came from a mathematician. So if it's true in math, I can't imagine it's got to be true everywhere, right?
It is. I mean, I think we're born we're divine beings. No matter what your affiliation to spiritual or whatever, you're a divine being. You're a living, breathing. We have breath. But you got to pay attention to your breath because as we're breathing, or individuals we breathe, that the breath gives us life. And we're full of love. I truly believe that we are full of love.
Yes.
Everybody, single person, no matter what they've done, what they did, they have love and some love inside them. It's just maybe hidden. Find that love and then spread that love out. That's my mission.
That 3-year-old child had a lot of love, or that 2-year-old child, that newborn child was born with lots of love.
Yes.
Find that inner child and keep that beautiful inner child safe and loved and cared for, and re-engage, because that's where it is. I love that so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you, Alicia. So I know you have tools. Your website is right there.
Yes.
And we're going to share that. And you have a lot of tools that you share with your audience as well. And we really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you
so much. I appreciate you letting me be on here and spreading the word of love.